And now we're going to move on to the next big topic of the week. So Tom Brady is with the Buccaneers. Seems like all that anyone's talking about right now is Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers. Now, a big question that I'm guessing you guys are here to hear me say is, how do I feel about this? How do I think Tom Brady's going to do? So let's look at this. He has Brate and Howard at tight end. Let's compare that to this past year's Ben Watson and Matt LaCosse, and Ryan Izzo, I guess, is a third-string guy. But he had the bare minimum at tight end this year, a 38-year-old guy who came out of retirement, a no-namer who hasn't started a full season, and then a guy who hadn't really started any games before this season in Izzo. So that's what he had at tight end last year. And the Patriots had one of the lowest, if not the lowest, tight end receiving yardage out of the entire NFL. So I think having that tight end back, you guys have seen what he does with Gronk. O.J. Howard, he's a great tight end, and I think Brady could really utilize him well, same way he utilized Gronk. And then you go to the wide receiver position, Godwin and Evans, both there. You compare that to this year's, he had Mohamed Sanu for half a season, Julian Edelman for the full season. Julian Edelman was really the only receiver he had for the entire season, besides Philip Dorsett. But Philip Dorsett had a couple shining moments, but then kind of fluttered out. He had N'Keal Harry, but N'Keal Harry never really produced much besides 3 catches in a game for, 30 yards. But you can't really blame N'Keal Harry. I think he's going to go on to be a better receiver, at least a number 2 receiver, number 3 maybe. Because he was injured for the majority of the year. He came in mid-season. It's kind of hard to get into the groove with the team when you come in mid-season, so I understand that. But just comparing it to last year, it's going to be a massive improvement. And I don't think we've seen Brady with so many offense. I mean, at the beginning of this season, it's kind of interesting because at the beginning of this season, we were all talking about, oh my God, Brady's got all these weapons. Antonio Brown, Demaryius Thomas, Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman. It's going to be insane, and Gronk may come back. And then fast forward 4 weeks into the season, he's down to Edelman and Dorsett, really. And N'Keal Harry on the way to the comeback. But Demaryius Thomas was cut for Antonio Brown. Then Antonio Brown had to go. Josh Gordon had to go through midseason. And it's sad because there was a lot of potential in that offense, and it all fluttered away pretty quickly. It was just a case of bad luck on the part of the Patriots. And I hope that doesn't happen this year. I don't think it will, because I think the difference is we all know that Godwin, Evans, Brate, and Howard, they've all been on the Buccaneers for a little while now. So we know that they can at least stay on the team, and now that they have a good quarterback, they're going to have a much higher want to stay on the team and to actually push harder, because they got a guy who can throw them an accurate ball. And then they have a solid running back. Not a very well-known guy, but they have a solid core that I think can do well if they have a solid pass game. Kind of the same as the Patriots running game from not this year, but the past year and Sony Michel's rookie year. It wasn't amazing, but he had a few 100-yard games in there. This year, Sony Michel didn't break 100 yards at all this season. But yeah, it's... And let's talk about the Tampa Bay defense. I feel like there's a big misnarrative there. They talk about the defensive stats, points per game that you let up. Well, it's hard to not let up a lot of points per game when your quarterback's averaging 2.5 picks a game. If you keep getting 30 interceptions, if you keep getting put in these situations where you're backed up at your own 20 to start the drive, and the other offense gets to start on your 20, it becomes very hard not to let up points, because that gives yourselves about 2 downs to come up with a stop compared to the 6 or 7 downs that most defenses normally have. And I personally feel like the Buccaneers have been close to a playoff run for years. The record may not show that. I mean, they went 7-9 this past year, and then 5-11 2 years in a row, and then 7-9 before that. So the record doesn't show it all that well. But I think the big problem with the Buccaneers has been, 1, the coaching. The coaching hasn't been enough to overcome the quarterback. And 2, the quarterback. They haven't had a solid quarterback in a long time with Jameis Winston, and it's sad because they have a great offensive roster, but And they threw a lot of pass yards. But those interceptions just killed him again and again and again. You look at it, Jameis Winston's first career pass was a pick six. His last career pass with the Buccaneers, pick six. It's kind of a poetic summary to his entire career. But yeah, the record doesn't show that, but the problem has always stood in the quarterback position. The quarterback directs the game like a movie, tweaking things as he goes, and the game flows through him like water through a faucet. I mean, if he gets hot, then the water gets hot. You know, it flips back and forth. If he gets cold, throwing 30 interceptions, the team gets cold. And we saw that with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've seen that before with other teams. And sometimes in rare situations, like the 2008 Patriots, where they went 11-5 with Matt Castle, the coach can sometimes overcome the quarterback and put up a decent season, a playoff season, with a below-average quarterback. But when your coach isn't stupendous, like Bill Belichick, or like past coaches that have also done that, then it becomes insanely difficult to find success if you don't have a quarterback who can stay at least lukewarm before getting cold 2.5 times a game. Now, I'm not saying that the team can't work, but I am saying that it becomes insanely difficult for it to work, for it to flow, if there's this roadblock in a quarterback that can't seem to work well. And I don't know. It's really tough because the quarterback position, it's not really overrated. You know, I mean, the offensive line, every other position on the team is, I believe, underrated. But the quarterback position is not overrated because the quarterback is the only player that majority of the games touches the ball every single play. And of course, touching the ball doesn't necessarily mean importance because the offensive line is insanely important. They don't ever touch the ball. But my point is that if the quarterback is not playing a good game, it becomes insanely hard for the rest of the team to. Unless you have an insane run game, it becomes insanely hard for the rest of the team to flow. So what it ultimately comes down to for the success of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is whether or not Tom Brady stays elite. Now, I believe he can, but hence the I believe. Yeah, I don't know for sure. You know, the cliff is always going to come for every quarterback. I'm a Patriots fan. I'm a Tom Brady. I like the guy. He's my favorite quarterback in the NFL. But I can admit that a cliff comes for every quarterback. Now, Tom Brady's cliff may be postponed due to his TB12 method, but that doesn't make him invincible. And by cliff, just to clarify, I mean the day his body simply doesn't have the stamina to play a 16-game regular season as a starting QB. I've said this before, and I'll say this again. A lot of people take a cliff. They kind of don't really understand it. It doesn't mean that the quarterback, doesn't know how to throw a ball anymore. Throws 5 yards off every single play. Because a 60-year-old Brett Favre, I'm sure, can still throw. I don't think he's 60, but when he turns 60, I'm sure he'll still be able to throw a good football 50 yards down a field, an accurate ball. But that's not it. I mean, when you're playing, 60 snaps a game, 16 games a season, that becomes insanely hard to do if you're at that age limit, and if your body's like, man, I can't do this anymore, and you got to account for practices during the midweek, staying up late studying film, just all the stress and all the anxiety and all the pressure and the workload that comes with playing a starting quarterback in an NFL season. If you don't have the stamina to do that, then that's your cliff. It's not being able to throw the ball anymore. It's about that stamina. If you don't have that, then you can't be the starting quarterback anymore. We saw that in Peyton Manning in his last year where he won the Super Bowl, carried by his defense. Now, to be 100% honest, he didn't kill the team. And I'm not saying Peyton Manning was basically on crutches while the defense just scored over and over. While the defense was amazing, Peyton Manning didn't kill the team. He put up as many points as he needed to, didn't do anything amazing, anything eye-catching, but he put up enough points he needed to win a Super Bowl. And we saw, he ran out of that stamina. And I think that's going to come eventually for Tom Brady. It's going to come. And like I said, it might be postponed due to his TB12 method, pliability, but it's going to come nonetheless. It's inevitable for any quarterback. And I think the Tampa Bay offense has potential to one-up the Chiefs. But again, it all comes down to those expectations that we all have for an offense like that. That means Godwin needs to not fall and all of a sudden not play good. Evans needs to keep playing that high potential. Brait, Howard, they need to keep playing. The run game needs to be solid. The offensive line, if the offensive line is terrible, then a lot of this could be fluttered away. This could fall all out of reach if that offensive line is terrible this year. So a lot of expectations, a lot of holes need to be filled in order for this great offensive season to happen. And it all starts with Tom Brady, the quarterback position. The director of each of those 16 movies during the season starts with him. And I would love to do a film review on it. We were talking about film reviews earlier. Thinking about that right now, I'm going to do a film review on Tom Brady this year. I'm going to see, just how good is he, or how good was he this past year, because that will very much help us to understand if he can continue to be elite with an elite offense, or if he will only drag that offense down.